Hello and welcome to Carrow Road, the home of the mighty Norwich City Football Club, the Canaries, a home they've had for 80 years, a home that's had a number of ups and downs.
There's been promotions and relegations, cup-winning teams and dismal cup exits, homegrown talents and star players, fire, ice, fog, snow, vociferous crowds, small crowds, angry crowds, crowds who came dressed for the occasion and some who didn't. And there's been flamboyant and ebullient managers and those that have preferred to let their leadership do the talking.
Prior to Carrow Road, City played at the Nest on Rosary Road. It was a highly unusual, a compact ground that was deemed by the Football Association in May 1935 as unsatisfactory for housing big crowds.
The club had to move. A site near the River Wensum was offered for sale by J&J Coleman, and with a loan of £8,000 from the FA, construction started on June the 11th. And the first match was just 82 days later. Yes, all completed with a roof on the main stand in just 82 days. And that first game was against West Ham United in Division 2. City won 4-3 and the very first goal was scored by club captain Dog Lockhead. In 1948, a record home crowd of 37,800 watched the game against Notts County.
In 1956, floodlights were installed for the first time at Carrow Road at a cost of £9,000. But the following year, 1957, the club's existence was threatened with debts of more than £20,000 after 25 league games without a win. The then Lord Mayor, Arthur South, launched an appeal and rescued the club. And that was when Geoffrey Watling was elected as chairman.
Just 2 years later, in 1959, capacity crowds of 38,000 witnessed 4 dramatic FA Cup home wins over Manchester United, Cardiff, Tottenham and Sheffield United, as City reached the semi-finals for the very first time. We didn't make it to Wembley, but silverware did arrive 3 years later in 1962 when City won the League Cup, beating Rochdale 1-0 in the home leg of the final to complete a 4-0 aggregate success. A decade later, in 1972, and City are unbeaten at home as they win promotion to Division 1 for the first time under manager Ron Saunders, winning the Division 2 title with 57 points.
It was a momentous time for the club, and I was no different to any other 12-year-old at the time. I needed the autographs of all the players, so in my autograph book I got Payne and Cross and Keelan, Stringer, Sylvester, Forbes, Patton, and I had to have the Norwich shirt for Christmas.
But I digress. City finally made it to Wembley in 1973 after a dramatic League Cup semi-final against Chelsea. The first game was abandoned after 85 minutes because of fog. We were that close to Wembley, yet the referee stopped the match. It was one of the few times I recall seeing the main stand season ticket holders throwing their cushions onto the pitch in disgust. Anyway, we finally won the rearranged match 1-0 and off to North London we went. In 1975, seats were installed in the South Stand at a cost of £40,000 after City clinched promotion back to Division 1 at the first attempt. But 2 years later, 1977, the Barclay Stand suffered when Manchester United fans rioted after their team lost 2-1. The River End terracing finally got demolished in 1979 to make way for a new £1.7 million double-decker stand. And in 1982, the first electronic scoreboard appears at Carrow Road after City secured another promotion at the first attempt. However, tragedy struck in October 1984 when fire destroyed much of the main stand. It took many hours to bring the blaze under control, and the club lost photographs, trophies and years of tradition. However, it was all smiles 1 year later, 1985, with Milk Cup glory. But relegation from Division 1 and exclusion from the UEFA Cup because of the ban on English clubs made it a bittersweet year. City bounced back in 1986, returning to Division 1 as second division champions, and the new City Stand came back into use. In the wake of the Hillsborough disaster, the Barclay Stand fencing was taken down in 1989, and just 3 years later, with the start of the Premier League, Carrow Road goes all-seater as the new £2.8 million two-tier Barclay Stand replaced the old terracing, and seats were installed on the River End terracing. Well, City finished third in that first season of the Premier League, and that meant finally in 1993 European football came to Norwich, with ties against Vitesse Arnhem, Bayern Munich and Inter Milan. Interesting times were ahead for Carrow Road, and in 1996 City came close to bankruptcy. Club chairman Robert Chase quit after weeks of protest, selling his shares to club president Geoffrey Watling, and a TV chef called Delia Smith joined the board.
Which brings us into the 21st century. And 11 years ago in 2004, when this 8,000-seater Gerald stand was opened after the demolition of the South Stand. And just a year later, the community stand was opened and added 1,700 to the Carrow Road capacity. So that brings us into 2015, the year that the all-seater record was broken when Norwich beat Ipswich 2-0 in the East Anglian derby. 27,005 people witnessed a terrific game.
It's certainly been a roller coaster ride at Carrow Road over 80 years. Now, in 2015, the club's in a healthy financial position, has a well-respected manager and board, and of course an exceedingly loyal fan base. And we're back on the top perch. I'm meeting with former Evening News football writer and author David Cuffley, who's seen City play here as many years as I have.
David, what are your thoughts on the development of Carrow Road over the 80 years then?
I suppose one of the great things is that it's changed very gradually over the years. The changes have been made, for example, these 4 stands over a period of 25 years. So it's always felt like home to successive generations of fans.
And do you remember the year you first came and where you stood?
The first game I saw was in 1967, and I stood with my dad and my brother on the terracing, which was between the old Barclay and South Stand. Mm-hmm. And at that stage, of course, 3 sides of the ground were terracing. The only seats were in the old wooden main stand.
And all-time favourite player?
That would have to be Dave Stringer, I would say. A local lad, obviously, who did exceptionally well. He played in the first game I ever saw. He was player of the season in the promotion campaign. He scored that brilliant goal against Crystal Palace that saved City from relegation in '73. And he went on to be a very good manager. He's also an extremely nice guy. So he's kind of your local hero.
So I guess we've all got a favourite player that we've watched here at Carrow Road over the years. For me, it was a man who was on the wing. Number 11 he was, fast and nimble. He let his feet do the talking. He was one of the great players we ever had who was a winger. He was, of course, Mr. Kenny Foggo, the only man who has his own page in my autograph book. There's only one Kenny Foggo. On the ball, City.